Did you hear that? You made me think of that Konstantin Kisin. He got called by a journalist. I can't remember who it was, but I think it was an American. They were asking about Elon Musk and Konstantin's thoughts on it. And he did this great thing where, which I'm going to steal whenever I get asked about things. Every time the person implied something Konstantin had said, Konstantin just said, "Are you under the impression that I said A, B, and C?" And then the person had to then say, the journalist had to go, "No, okay, no, I know you didn't say that, but what?" And that's what I'm going to say all the time. Are you under the impression?
Yeah, that's
good.
what
I said.
Make it a question.
Yeah,
like I'd love to sit down. And the problem is these lies and misrepresentations get amplified in kind of Chinese whispers way. So, for instance, when the Guardian the other day called Spiked hard right. You know how media outlets often just take stories that are in other media outlets and just basically rearrange the words and put them out again. The New York Post did this, which is a conservative outlet, and they took the article, basically rewrote it. And so they called Spiked far right, which is equivalent of saying fascist.
Wow.
One of their columnists is Brendan O'Neill, the chief political correspondent for Spiked and former editor of Spiked. They've just called one of their own columnists a fascist. This is the New York Post. So it's not just the left that do it. I mean, everyone's at it. But yeah, if I was in a room with the person who wrote that New York Post article, I would say, can you clarify which elements of Spiked are far right?
Yeah.
I would say the same to the Guardian. Can you clarify which are hard right? What is it exactly?
What does right even mean now?
I mean, well, this is it. I mean, this is another debate, isn't it? I mean, I'm of the opinion that right and left has been killed off by the culture war. These things are utterly meaningless now. I know what I mean by left and right. Yeah, but I don't think those are the accepted views anymore. I bet people call you right wing.
Yeah. When they call me, no one calls anymore.
Do they not?
No, they do. They right wing, not allowed to talk in books. We've spoken about this.
We have, haven't we?
Not allowed. It's a weird thing, but you start to embrace it. I interviewed Richard Dawkins the other night in Belfast on stage, and I asked him about everything else first, all the evolution stuff, because I don't know who's come to see him they want to know about genes and chromosomes. But then a bit about the trans stuff and just what's it like suddenly finding yourself having been hated by the far right, you're now hated by the far left. And he told this story about, I can't remember who it was, but it was an explorer who, in the snow somewhere, who felt trans or whatever, felt like they were a woman their whole life, and how tragic that was, and how sorry he felt for this person. And he even used her pronouns as though it were a woman, and then said, of course, it doesn't mean that he actually was a woman. And there was a bit of a cheer, and then boo, boo in the audience, people leaving, like slamming doors shut. And I was like, that was a bit much, Richard, wasn't it? And he was like, well, it happens.
Wow. It does happen. All the booing and that's not...
But who comes to see Richard Dawkins? They must know he's a scientist.
Yeah. Isn't that funny that he's become branded as right-wing for expressing scientific facts?
It's so bizarre.
Yeah, we are living in strange times.
We are. And I think that's why obviously Musk, gets upset when he hears that he's responsible for so much disinformation. You've just listed countless examples of the Guardian doing it, the mainstream media doing all of this disinformation. I mean, is it impossible to get rid of disinformation entirely?
Well, it depends what you mean by disinformation. I mean, like I say, mistakes are going to be made. I got into an argument on Radio 4 with a very woke presenter and his very woke guest, who were effectively saying that Musk's stance on free speech wasn't valid because he had reposted some misinformation, which was a far-right conspiracy theory or anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, I think it was. And I said to the host of this BBC Radio 4 show, well, the BBC reported that the IDF had been targeting medics at a hospital in Gaza. That's anti-Semitic. That plays fully into an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. They did then apologize, admit that it was completely fabricated and wrong. But they've done it. Musk did the same. He then apologized and said, I shouldn't have done that. So same thing. But you work for the BBC. And I asked him explicitly, so does that mean that in your view, the BBC is guilty of spreading anti-Semitic misinformation, conspiracy theories, and you now denounce them? And he wouldn't answer the question.
Oh,
well, obviously he wouldn't answer the question.
It's pathetic.
Well, it was probably unreasonable of me to ask that on his show.
But I would like to think that I don't know, but if I was held to rights like that, what's the expression? Bang to rights?
Bang to rights.
Banged.
I don't know what it means.
Banged?
I think it's bang to rights, B-A-N-G.
I am literally bang.
I don't think
rights.
you've been banged to rights. I think that's
I have. No, I don't know what that means either.
I mean, it's. I don't think we should go there, although we are in a basement.
And then we're in a banged up abroad kind of thing. What was the point? Bang to rights. I would like to think, okay, you know what? That's a fair point.
I think, yeah. I mean, the great thing about just not lying means you rarely get caught out. Like I'm never worried about interviews throwing gotchas at me because I don't say things that I don't believe to be true. So
it's why I don't cheat on my wife.
Is it?
Because I love her. But.
Yeah, well, there should be more reasons than that.
No, but you know what? It is a relief because every now and then she'll take my phone to like order food or something, and I get a pang of relief that I'm not. There's nothing she can find there. It's all good.
Oh yeah, I mean the idea of obviously I'm not a saint, and in the past I've misrepresented and lied, particularly at university, particularly when I was an undergraduate, and got myself in all sorts of.
What did you lie about?
Relationships and stuff,
right.
And particularly being in stupid situations where you're 18 or whatever, and you're perhaps not as pure as one would hope, and you end up lying, and you end up lying to different people about different things, and forgetting who you've lied to about what, and getting very jealous and all of those horrible emotions.
I was very jealous. As a
teenager. That's something I'm really glad I've got over, insofar as I think sexual jealousy is one of the most self-destructive, awful things. And in all of when I see my friends who still suffer from this thing, and you can see them driving their partners into the arms of other men by simply being so overtly jealous and extreme and controlling. And ultimately, you've got to get into your head that if someone is going to cheat, they're going to cheat. And it doesn't make a difference how you try and put obstacles in their way.
Yeah, it makes them want to go over those obstacles, doesn't it? There's a great passage, and there's one of the Will Storr. Will Storr? One of his early books, I think. It really stood out to me. There was a passage where he spoke about, maybe he regrets writing this, especially me repeating it all the time. I don't know, but he would leave his girlfriend in the morning, go off to work, and then he'd come back and sort of look through the keyhole, I think it was, or listen at the door. Or something. Terrible. Yeah, and I don't think he suffers from that anymore, but he must have been a teenager or something as well. And it's so overpowering.
I had something like that because I had a partner, however much a teenager can have a partner, but similar thing, who was cheating on me with like many, probably dozens of individuals. But then there was grounds for my jealousy.
Sure.
But the destruction was ultimately just my own.
He would have done it either way.
Sure.
This person, what difference?
Exactly. So, and you read the classics to get over this stuff. You read Othello, don't you? That's what I just saw a production of Othello recently. Just remember, if people just watch Othello, look at what happens there, think, no, this isn't good. The green-eyed monster, which doth mock the meat it feeds on. You remember you've seen Othello?
Yeah, I've read it years ago.
Yeah. It's so powerful. This wasn't a great production, but it was, it just, all of that stuff is pathetic, but you get yourself in these webs, we can't all be like Iago, who delights in dissemblance, delights in lying, for its own sake. What I like about Iago is whenever you get those soliloquies in that play, he ends up lying to himself at the moment when he's supposed to be revealing everything to the audience about himself. So he forgets which aspects of what he says are true and which are false. This is why no one's got any idea about his motive, because he gives about 5 different potential motives.
Interesting.
And then just drops them. It's a fascinating play. But lies is the key. Like once you get to the point where you just think, it's like Jordan Peterson says, you should try just not to lie, or at least not. How does he put it? He says, he says basically, if you live your life with lies, you destroy yourself. And I think that's what it is. And I think all of these publications you're describing, all of these people that put out falsehoods, eventually have to either stand by them and be ridiculed and humiliated, or admit that they got it wrong. But because they're ideologues, they never admit that they've got anything wrong.
I feel like it takes courage to be honest and to admit flaws. And I feel that that's what The Guardian at the moment and many other publications are failing at.
Yeah, it should be easy, shouldn't it? Because there's no face to that. I know they put out retractions every now and then. That should be dead simple. But, if I were to have a conversation with this guy who wrote this erroneous piece about me, I don't think I could get him to admit that he had. I think he probably thinks that what he wrote was true. I don't know if that's worse or
I'm
better.
Sure he does. I'm sure. I'm sure that people don't. Most people, I would like to think, don't think, ha, I'm lying.
Yes,
they just think, this is the truth here. Just keep writing.
Except though that we spar incident, they must have known that was wrong.
I don't know.
I mean, I find it very. Unless it is stupidity, and we mustn't discount stupidity as a factor in all of this.
Yeah,
is that people can make those kind of mistakes because they haven't done due diligence. That's possible.
I think, you know, what changed my mind on a lot of this stuff and led me towards what you're saying, stupidity, always Hanlon's razor, always like it is stupidity, not malice, is working for so many years on my previous channel on cults and seeing quite how far people's minds can go. Yeah. They can believe in Lord Xenu. They can believe in bonkers Jehovah's Witness things or all sorts of mad things to their own detriment often, like serious detriment. They end up getting abused by cult leaders and things.
Yeah.
So somebody making themselves believe that you're right wing, that's nothing compared to what people can make themselves believe.
No, that's true. And the things that they can believe themselves. Yeah. And that we're all subject to these extreme emotions. And, you know, like you mentioned with these people running off to blue sky and all screaming about each other is like, you know, we are. I mean, that's where we started, isn't it? I come in here in a bad mood. I'm lamenting the fact that we're subject to these human emotions, but we all are. Yeah. And we all live in a slightly distorted landscape, don't we? That isn't really real.